I've always been interested in European periodontal organizations and periodontal teaching and periodontal everything. And so when I came in 1971, that was the year, I was not aware of it, but that the old ARPA was blown up. And I still don't know why, but probably there was quarreling in the board. But the result was that all the individual countries had to rename their society. And so the Dutch ARPA was now the Dutch Society of Periodontology. And I think later on I was thinking about this whole European organization and questioned myself, why happened this? And one of the things I thought was that the knowledge and attitude towards periodontology between Northern Europe, the UK, Scandinavia, and a little bit Switzerland, and maybe a few people in Germany and Holland, was so different from Southern Europe. If I look back to my first conference, that in 1971, that was this conference on periodontology in Edinburgh, organized by Tocqueville McPhee. That was such a high level. And then when you go to an IDR meeting in France, in which someone is talking for 1 hour on the basis of one slide. And I was heavily influenced by the UK and heavily influenced by Scandinavia in the way of proper research. So I thought, well, if we want to organize European periodontology, we shall first organize that the level of research and the level of knowledge is more or less the same. And therefore, we try to organize conferences, and we organize the North Sea conferences. So with the British Society and the Scandinavian Society and the Dutch Society, we organized in 1980 the first North Sea conference. And that was a great success in Veje in Denmark. Then 5 years later it was in Cambridge in the UK, and in 1990 it was in Maastricht in Holland. Meanwhile, the board of the Dutch Society of Periodontology wrote a letter to the other periodontal societies, and I mean the ones who are included in the Journal of Clinical Periodontology, to sit together to try to coordinate European periodontology. And so in 1987 the first meeting was with in Montreux, when there was a joint meeting between the Swiss Society and the Dutch Society of Periodontology, the first coordination committee on periodontology. And this coordination committee, which I chaired, came together since that time every year. And finally, I think in 1990, we formulated the goals, and we sent the goals to the various societies. And in 1991, in a meeting of the Coordination Still Committee in Amsterdam, which I chaired, we got all the letters of the societies that they were in favor of organizing a European Federation of Periodontology. And that was 1991. And from that moment, I think the European periodontology was growing and growing and get more and more important. And the people who were then present, they spent so much time on it and were so motivated to do it. It was great fun. It was really great fun. And the first chairman of the EFP was appointed in that meeting in Maastricht. That was Jean-Louis Giovanoli from France. And then there was a discussion within the old group. Shall we organize another North Sea conference, or do we go for a European Europerio meeting? And we were a little bit careful. So we said, well, let's first look how the first Europerio goes, and we will organize the 4th North Sea conference. And if Europerio is successful, then the 4th North Sea conference will be the last. So in 1993, I think it was in Paris, and in, or was it 1994? I forget. In 1995, there was the 4th North Sea conference in Gothenburg. And due to the fact that the European meeting in Paris was a success, the last meeting of the North Sea conference was in 1995. And then it was really the fact that the European Federation of Paleontology would really grow and survive and flourish. And of course we had formulated our goals, and one of the clear goals was to create postgraduate education to a specialist level. And that was one of the things in which I spent a lot of time up to last year, more or less. And we took in the beginning, the blueprint of the postgraduate training as we had developed in Amsterdam. That was a little bit modified, and finally it was accepted. And the whole structure was first evaluated in Amsterdam and Bern, I think. The importance of the EFP in the first place was when it started was a small group. It were only the founding members, and I think that the European conferences has helped a lot. It is coming from a small meeting now to a very large meeting. Maybe that in the next meeting in London next year, that there will be about maybe 10,000 people coming to this conference. So from that perspective, it is extremely successful. But more important, I think, that is that we get the guidelines for a periodontist in Europe, and since in a number of countries there's a recognized specialty, I think that due to the new guidelines from Brussels, maybe we get successful in getting an agreement on that the periodontology is a real specialty in dentistry. So from that respect it is important. I also think it is very important because some societies are so successful in producing educational material or ways to get periodontology knowledge into the population. So you see that by having this European Federation and that people meet each other during general assemblies, that things which have been developed in Spain, for instance, can be adopted in Italy, etc. So the exchange of ideas and what I said earlier, the level of knowledge all over Europe is very important. And I think that the EFP is extremely important in that respect. So I think that looking back from the beginning in 1991 to nowadays, I think we have a major improvement. Sometimes things go a little bit too fast, and because it depends also, you cannot force a country to get immediately a higher level of knowledge in the country itself. So by the full members and the members who are not yet recognized as a full member but are adopted, I think that we should still be a little bit strict when they can become a full member. That must be that indeed the level of knowledge and the ways of how they educate the people and the type of research which is done, that meets the level which is in the founding countries. And therefore I think that EFP has a great job still for the future. If we look to the EFP, then there have been numerous of people who have spent so much private time on it. And I think up to a few years ago we took that for granted. And sometimes I saw that someone who had spent so many years on the EFP and then did not was no longer included in the working groups and so on, then he got disappointed because he got a pencil, and that was something which could not, that was not accepted as a kind of, then you give better nothing. And when I got the Guy's Award from the American Academy of Paleontology, I saw a completely different attitude. I saw the one after the other prize for the best teacher and for the best student and the best this and the best that, etc. Awarding people. And of course with my European attitude and Dutch attitude, I think that was also too much. But it was better than what we did in Europe in the EFP. So that's why we developed awards. We created the Distinguished Service Award for people who have been working for the EFP for a large number of years. And we created the Distinguished Research Award for those people who have been doing a lot of research in Europe. And the first one who received it was Jan Linde, and the next one was Klaus Lang. And then we have the third one, and that is the combination of the service and the research, and that is the Eminence in Paleontology Award, and that I received last year, and I'm proud in it.